daily. They actually advocate twice a day that we should go into some form of silence, however that may be, in terms of just shutting down and just going within and tuning in to your own divine mind. It's really critically important if you really want to access and be clear in terms of higher knowledge and information. Because the true interpretation and understanding of the information is not external, it's internal. And so I'm just passing that on to you, in terms of however you do that. But essentially it's just shutting down and just going silent. They advocate a minimum of 20 minutes a day. If it's only one time a day, 20 minutes a day. Ideally twice a day. And the different schools talk about 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but the minimum is like 20 minutes. Like a 20-minute workout for your cardiovascular. If you're going to do a 20-minute workout for your cardiovascular, you do at least do 20-minute workout for your spiritual development. So again, we'll just do that. Again, you should just practice diaphragmatic breathing and just go in, close your mind off, and don't worry about the thoughts. Let the thoughts go past your mind, but don't follow them. Observe them, but don't follow them, because then they'll take you on a sidetrack. The whole idea is being able to be still and still your thinking. So once you can still your thinking, you can really tune in to your own inner self or divine self or holy guardian angel, whatever name you want to put on it. So we want to just briefly close our eyes, create a blank screen at your brow center, and tune in. Okay. So today's session is supposed to be on 4 and 5, but because of the immensity and really importance of number 4, we're probably just going to end up dealing with number 4 today, because we're going to get into the tetragrammaton and the 4 elements, the 4 cardinal points, and it's just a wealth of information, and because of the significance of the number 4. And then we'll maybe try to double up in the future sessions. So starting off, of course, we're going to go through a number of different interpretations of the number 4. So starting off with a handout on numerology, astrology, symbols, and graphics. On number 4, second page, it says, in the number 4, we see the triangle and the cross. Man is upright now and carrying the divine principle. It is considered to be a sacred number, as is 7, because it is composed of straight lines only. It is the number of reason and regularity, of tangible achievement. It symbolizes the earth, terrestrial space, and the human situation. So briefly, let's reflect on some of these key words in terms of again, what comes to your mind when we're talking about this, or what questions come to your mind, or what issues come to your mind? What keys do you see pop out when you look at this? In the number 4, we see the triangle and the cross. We're talking about the glyph or the graphic image of the 4. Definitely. Also, how our basic numerical system actually houses metaphysical concepts right there in front of our face. But unless we have been educated or made aware of this, we would no way look at it like that. It also says, in the number 4, we see the triangle and the cross. Man is upright now and carrying the divine principle. It is considered to be a sacred number, as is 7. But you can see within the 4, how is the 7 within the 4? Don't look at it graphically. Look at it in terms of the principles. I gave you the key. The key is in the first sentence. In the number 4, we see the triangle and the cross. Man is upright now and carrying the divine principle. It is considered to be a sacred number, as is 7. how is 7 in the 4? In one sense, but don't look at the glyph itself. Look at what has been defined, the definition we gave for 4. It gave you the keys and the definition for 4. I'm trying to get you to start doing, first of all, is starting to be able to pull out these key ideas, because that's how you can decipher what's being said. Also, start to be able to translate forms into number and number into form, because they're equivalents. Because the scriptures are based upon symbols that equate with various forms and numbers. But back to this. In the number 4, we see the triangle and the cross. Man is upright now, carrying the divine principle. It's considered to be a sacred number, as is 7. So how can you see the 7 in the 4? No. That's correct, but that's not answering the question. How do you see the 7 in the 4? I already gave you the answer.
And get upright in the vertical?
No. It's in the first sentence. I think sometimes things can be so obvious, we want to make it more complex, right? We want to make it so heavy. It's really simple. Mm-hmm. And if you listen to what I just said, I also gave you the key. But I said forms are equivalent to numbers, and numbers are equivalent to forms. In one sense, yeah.
Both numbers represent a form of man.
And I said the answer is in the first sentence. What does the first sentence say?
Is it that part of the 4 is like the 7?
No, I said it's not in the physical glyph. I said the answer is in the first sentence. What's the first sentence say? No, read it right here. This sentence right here in the paper.
Does it have to do with cyclical concepts again?
It's related, yes, but how?
The triangle, the cross
Is what?
4.
Right, and
The triangle is 3.
right. There it is. Why? I told you. Did you listen to what I said? Right. See? Why? Why?
You just said it all over your
So 2 things come out of that. One is you don't trust your own self.
You shut yourself down.
Right. You don't trust. You have to. And even if you was wrong, if something came to your mind, you should say it, because a part of the session is practicing freedom of thinking. So much in the outer world, we so hung up on being judged that we apprehensive about saying what really comes to our mind. So what you do is, when things come to your consciousness, your conscious mind edits it. But your conscious mind is your ego, and that's to condition you. So if you've been conditioned by society to think in a certain way, when certain things come from your unconscious mind, which is unconditioned, you reform it to form or to conform to how you've been conditioned. So you stay enslaved. You can only become free by becoming unconditioned. Well, it's just do it. You know what I'm saying? Because what happens when you say easier said, in that statement, you put a condition on yourself. Because it ain't necessarily easier said. Yeah, just do it. You know what I'm saying? See, so how we talk to ourselves either confirms or reinforces our conditioning, or it conforms or confirms or reinforces our liberation. That's why we have to be conscious and aware of how do we talk to ourselves. Yes, ma'am.
I had an answer. And I was real skeptical. I'm probably afraid to say it because I thought it would sound stupid. But what I did is I looked at the 4 and then counted all the outer sides of the lines, and that added up to 7.
Check that out. That's good. That's correct too. That wasn't the specific way I was asking, but that's correct too.
All of the outer lines, every line except for the line inside of the triangle. Just the outer lines, the 3 outer lines of the triangle, and then the 4 outer lines of the cross that I didn't count.
The other thing I was trying to do is to try to start also conditioning you to start looking at things in a different way, because when you see triangle, you should see 3. You know, when you see cross, you see 4. So when you see 4, you should see cross, square. When you see 3, you should see trine, trinity. That it should become synonymous. Because, again, Western mind thinks linear. Just one thing, this or that. Eastern Oriental, which we're Eastern Oriental people, thinks multiple. We're polyrhythmic. That means everything has multiple expressions.
So you can see the triangle superimposed on the cross.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, that's one way of looking at it.
Separated. You know,
you can see it a whole lot of ways.
Yeah, but if you see it that way, then you do see the 3 and 4.
Right.
But if you superimpose it, then your reluctance to count the 2 sides twice.
But see, that's one way of thinking about it. But see, the other was I was giving you keys all along.
So triangle.
I said the answer is in the first sentence.
Right.
So first of all, you say, well, what's in the first sentence? In the number 4, we see the triangle and the cross.
And the cross. So that's 3
right.
and 4.
Right.
But if you look at the number,
I said, do not look at the graphic image.
Okay. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I said, symbols or form equates with number, and number equates with form.
Well, see, what that's forcing now is that we actually have to dissect these things.
Yes.
To the extent that they, as an entity, they stand alone. Each thing can stand. You can look at it, and these things are standing by themselves.
We have to learn now from the last session in geometry, when we took that symbol of a square circle and all the lines and shapes, and then broke them down, pulled them out individually, because remember it talked about you have to start looking at the summation, how all these shapes are resident in a common form simultaneously, but don't get caught up. Where you can see it as various parts and can see it as a whole simultaneously. And so that statement that was just made, see it as individual parts and a whole simultaneously, which means you can look at each person in here as individuals, but yet we are simultaneously a whole. So then can we operate from that level of consciousness? That as we're dealing with individuals, we can see them as an individual, but simultaneously understand that we are also part of a cosmic whole, simultaneously. At the same time, you have separation and unity simultaneously.
You know, and also that concept of being able to see chart or relationships is a concept of intelligence. Higher thinking.
Right. Develops the abstract mind that builds the bridge between the higher, which is the trinity or the triangle, and the lower, which is the square. Oh, y'all got a problem with what I'm talking about? If I'm talking about stuff, you know what I'm talking about, raise your hand. Say, wait a minute, what you talking about? Because some of this is prior sessions we've had that we were referring to. No. It may be synonymous with a little interpretation, which is the lower way of looking at anything. But there's a lower interpretation of Islam. There's a lower interpretation of Kemetic knowledge. When people get crystallized in set forms, as opposed to understanding the principle of that thing that transforms or has an outer different clothing in different situations. And so then you get folks that where it's got to be just like this. So we're going back and try to replicate all those forms. Those forms was consistent for a certain time and space. We're now in a different time and space. So now trying to go back and fit this time and space in the forms of another time and space going to make you out of sync with time, or this time, So the square is looking at just the physical aspect of the thing. And then remember last week we talked about 3 being understanding. And understanding goes beyond the material. It's something that really can't be just tangibly put your hands on. You have to really feel it in your heart.
Have you heard of participation of this one?
Yes.
But then they have a number code too. And number 3 is the number of understanding too. Correct, that's correct. I mean, that's what they say too.
Right. Well, then they tie it in. They're supposed to be trying to go back into the science of Islam as opposed to the external doctrines.
This is the breakaway group?
Yeah, in certain sense, yeah. Right.
Can you go over this again? As far as
But read the first sentence. What does it say? All right. So in the number 4, we see the triangle and the cross. So then the triangle represents what number? No, a triangle. Tri, T-R-I, means right. And a cross represents what number?
2.
No. How many points on the cross?
4.
Right. There it is. The 7 and the 4. Okay? It says, there are many arrangements in sets of 4. The city 4 square, man perfected on the 4 sides of his nature, physically, mentally, spiritually, and psychically. The 4 elements of the ancient alchemists, fire, earth, air, and water. The 4 beasts in Ezekiel's vision. The 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. So this is also saying that these things are all equivalents. You follow what I'm saying? The 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. That's the astrology. Right, the zodiacal sign, the zodiac sign. So then you're saying, or that they're saying, that when they're talking about the city 4 square, man perfected on 4 sides of his nature, physically, mentally, spiritually, and psychically, the 4 elements of the ancient alchemists, fire, earth, air, and water, the 4 beasts in Ezekiel's vision, right, the lion, the bull, the scorpion, and the man. And then the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac are all equivalent. They're all talking about the same thing.
The zodiac separated into 2
4 cardinal, which is 4 fixed and 4 mutable. Right. So then again you got 3 and 4. Right. But then 3 times 4 is 12. Said what?
Can you say mutable?
No, he said mutable. Said cardinal fixed and mutable? Check that out. Happy face. You really
you go over this, you'll see all the stuff. I'm going to all of it. This is zodiac, right? So you have the 12 signs of the zodiac. So you have the first sign is cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable. 1, 2, 3. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So cardinal is initiating, fixed is preserving, and mutable is transforming. So that's a trinity. That's the three qualities upon which the life force operates. Three modes of operation, right? Cardinal, fixed, and mutable, thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, action, reaction, and summation. All those different words, right? And then you have the four elements of fire. First sign Aries is fire. Second sign Taurus is earth. Third sign Gemini is air. Fourth sign of Cancer is water. Then the fifth sign is Leo, which is fire. The sixth sign is Virgo, which is earth. Seventh sign is Libra, which is air. And the eighth sign is Scorpio, which is water. The ninth sign is fire, Sagittarius. The 10th sign is Capricorn, earth. The 11th sign is Aquarius, air. And the 12th sign is Pisces, water. So then you have the 3 and the 4, gives you 12, which is the 12 mansions or the 12 phases of life, which is based upon the numerical basis. And number is the basis for creation. So thusly, astrology is not based upon just some physical thing. It's based upon philosophical principles based upon number. And number is based upon formulas of geometrical patterns we talked about. That's what we see.
So activity is like fire.
It's fire. Well, fire is what? What is fire? You just think about the element. Fire is blaze, it's hyper, it's outgoing, it's inspirational, it's activity. Air is like air, wind. Air relates to the mind. Fire relates to spirit and inspiration. Earth, physical, tangible. Water, emotions, and feelings. So water signs are very sensitive, emotional. Earth signs very practical, down to earth. Air signs very communicative, mental. Fire signs hyper, energetic. And then they're modified by cardinal, fixed, and mutable. Cardinal fire, cardinal is initiated. So Aries likes to initiate activity, not necessarily stay with it. They like to start stuff and move on to something else. So then the earth signs, which are preservers to work with, because it helps preserve it, to make it physical, tangible. Then you have air signs, mental, communicative. Although, anyway, so it's not astrology session, but that's another class.
That's the fixed.
What's that? Fixed is like Leo, it's fixed. Fixed means fixed. Very Leo is I will. They're very determined. I want to be in the head or be in front of stage, or I want some attention for what I do, or, this type of energy. Sagittarius is mutable fire. So they're constantly changing, big vistas, moving on to this and that, expanding type energy. That's me. You got Taurus is then fixed, cardinal fixed. Taurus is fixed earth. So sustaining, materials, substance, foundation. Then Virgo is mutable earth. And so then Virgos are flexible. They can work with others and be more receptive. They don't have to have the final word. They can work. Really, Virgo can be more subservient and help and work with others to help others fulfill or perfect what they do. Where Taurus is very possessive and they, it's I am. They like possessions. They like to give them security from possessions and can be fixed, hard-headed, bull-headed. Right? And then Capricorn is cardinal earth. So the Capricorn is the initiators of practical projects and business people. Because Capricorns, they're the executives or authority figures. but in terms of a functional, practical kind of energy. So they can take a certain level of leadership. What's different in fire, because they'll be more methodical and more systematic, where a cardinal fire sign is going to be inspirational and hyper about what they do. Cardinal air sign will be more associative and mental, and then the cardinal water sign is going to be all emotional, going through all kind of emotional changes. So anyway, you can just take the quality, cardinal, fixed, and mutable, and add it to the element, and that combination gives you some definition of what that particular characteristic is for that. Now again, in the true astrology, you have to get the natal chart done, because when you get the natal chart done, you have all 12 elements. Each person has all 12 elements in there in a different combination. So it's not just because I'm Sagittarius, I got a Virgo rising, my moon, all this kind of stuff. So it creates a unique mix. If somebody else is born in my day at a different time, or a different location, they'll have a different mix. Although we have a central basic kind of character that will be very similar in some ways, there will be unique qualities for each individual. So anyway, what I'm trying to show you, the fixed sign, the first fixed sign is Taurus. That's the bull. The second fixed sign is Leo. That's the lion. The third fixed sign is Scorpio, which is the scorpion, but the higher aspect of Scorpio is the eagle. And then the fourth fixed sign is Aquarius, which is the man, or the human. And so then when you look at a lot of those symbols, a lot of those cathedrals have those four animals up there. The people don't really understand what they really represent. You have different, and we'll get into that, but you have different of your so-called apostles or disciples that also, because the 12 disciples actually represent the 12 zodiacal signs. And Jesus is symbolic of the sun that expresses itself 12 different ways.
Well, it's the principle, not the individual.
Right. Well, that's a myth anyway.
Right.
Yes, sir. Yes, that's true too. Because everything that's true in the macrocosm or the greater universe is true in us as the little universe. So your sun, you have your sun, and you have a purpose that it reflects itself through the 12 different energies you have in you. Right. Because each individual has a Christ, or Christ is really a concept for cosmic or spiritual consciousness. It could be Haru or Cyrus or Brahma or Krishna. All those are just different languages talking about the same thing in terms of spiritual, cosmic, universal consciousness. That aspect of the spirit in you. And those within the lifestyles or the trials and tribulations that each of those entities went through just reflects the changes each of us have to go through if we want to cultivate that consciousness in ourselves. And they've taken those various initiatory steps they went through and made it become like a living life as a story. But what it actually is just chronicling the changes that each disciple has to go through to elevate their consciousness to become spiritualized.
As for a sacred number.
Say, how is 4 a sacred number? We're going to go into that. Yes.
It's interesting, I've been to communication classes, and they never address this, and I think that's really pertinent because I was just listening to Capricorn, and sometimes it's misinterpreted as, maybe it's dysfunctional behavior, but that's by birthright, your personality, but there's really nothing that you can do about it.
Well, no, you can see every sign has positive and negative characteristics. Everything has positive and negative characteristics. And then it has levels and degrees of positive and negative. So then, because see, Capricorn at its highest level is the world savior. Because that's the mountaintop. So when Martin Luther King said he'd been to the mountaintop, in actuality, he had went to a high level of spiritual consciousness and had seen a certain level of reality. And so Capricorn represents that mountaintop experience. When in actuality, physically, the time of Capricorn is when the earth is most barren and spirit is most encased because it's wintertime. So it talks about how one has to go to the mountaintop, one has to really go to the depths of hell. Right. You understand what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, but see, that's what time it is in terms of this. The time we're in now is the age of the revealing, where the so-called mysteries that have become literalized will become made known. Because once that veil is taken away, all this confusion and hatred and all that crap will be eliminated, because people see things for what they really are, themselves as number one. But anyway, let's keep rolling. Let's go to the here. Okay, I got a handout out. This is the next handout. This comes from Serpent in the Sky. And it covers 4 and 5. We're only going to get through 4 today. And I'll try to go through 5 and 6 next time. But it may be the way it's coming out. But before we go there, how many people have the significance of numbers? It's a one-page handout. I think I've handed this out before. You don't have that? You don't have it? No. On the name, certain number. You guys have that. If you have, you should have that. I've passed this out before. You have.
I have an extra one if somebody needs it.
Yeah, you don't have it. I have it, but I didn't know you don't. I'm sure it's class. You got it. Okay. Brandon, you got to get you a loose leaf notebook and get you some dividers and keep your material organized. I'm going through all these changes, pull all this information out and hand it out. You should at least keep it organized. The first one I gave up from Serpent in the Sky by John West. This one comes from Handbook of Humanistic Astrology. Right. Page 82 and 83, right. Astrological principles. Right. So what we're going to look at is, we'll go over the significance of numbers. That'll bring it up to 4. And it comes from the Pythagorean, because Pythagoras wrote down all of this, and he kind of pulled it out of the mythology and gave it to the Greeks. But of course, Pythagoras was a student of the African scholars and Kemet, so basically he is articulating the African philosophical system. So sometimes we get hung up in the form of the messenger and we miss the message. It says, the Pythagoreans believed that each number from 1 to infinity had a meaning and nature of its own, and held that essence could be found in all things. Thus the nature of all things may be described by numbers. According to the Pythagorean system, the monad is the origin of all things. So when the monad is equivalent to 1. So when you read things and start talking about the monad, understand that they're talking about the 1, which is the absolute. You are therefore symbolic of the primal state of unity, indivisibility, and essential oneness. Monad is both odd and even, containing the essence of both. The dyad are 2. The dyad is the first of an infinite series of even numbers. The dyad, like all even numbers, is related to the principle of matter and the material evolution. The dyad being symbolic of the initial emergence of life into the form of matter. It divides all things into 2 realms, good and evil, light and dark, subject, object, internal, external.
Its keywords are externalization, separation, tension, and awareness. It's very interesting because these same characteristics are representative of the Western world. Externalization, the focus on the external, the focus on separate, the focus on tension, and awareness. They're always spying on everybody. So they're in a state of duality, a state of division. Triad 3. The triad is the first of an infinite series of odd numbers, thus symbolic of the principle of spirit and the process of spiritual evolution. The triad is the principle of reconciliation of opposites through a common element, monad, a process represented in the trinities of all religions. Its keywords are relationship, understanding, growth, and equilibrium. I like females too. Tetrad, the 4. The tetrahedron is the first geometric solid or regular polygon. So get these relationships here. We're talking about 4 relating to matter, the physical, the earth, matter, and the tetrahedron is the first geometric solid or regular polygon. Thus, the tetrad symbolizes solid power and the emergence of an ordered system of manifestation. The tetrad was held by the Pythagoreans to be the root of all manifested things. So the 4 is the root of all manifested things. So if we went back to what we were talking about, the 3 modes of the Trinity operate in the universe, but to become manifest, they had to operate through the 4. And the 4 elements of fire, air, earth, and water then creates the manifested world. And we're going to follow this when we start talking about the tetragrammaton and the divine or sacred name. We'll also see how the realm or the world is divided into 4s. It's interesting too because if once you become aware of these principles, then when you read other material, you will start to see these patterns manifest themselves. When I was studying business and marketing, there's always these 4s that come up. 4 principles of management, the 4 principles of marketing, the 4 principles of communication. You just start, and so you can start hooking stuff up. It also will validate or verify the legitimacy of these things. So then the keywords for 4 are concrete manifestation and actualization of relationships. It also then can help you to become more productive, because then you say if you want to build something that's going to be solid, you need to find what are the 4 essential components of that thing. Because if the physical solid foundations are based upon 4, then if I'm going to build something, what are my 4 essential points of what I'm constructing? What are they? If I can define what those things are and put those in the right relationship, then I will have a very strong structure. And the base of a pyramid is 4. Anyway, okay. So that's what I want to just, and also I'm sharing with you is how different schools look at the numbers in different ways, but they'll all have a common element through all of them. The common element is the universal. The little variations is their own particular personalities and how they look at something. So that's what that's all about. Now we can go to the next handout. So this one comes out of John Wesley's piece, Serpent in the Sky. 4. That is page... Is that what it is? 37? You got the book? 37, okay. Yeah. So 4, material, substance, themes. The physical world is the matrix of all sensuous experience. Let's just talk about that. What do you think about what that says? Material, substance, things. The physical world is the matrix of all sensuous experience. The basis of the senses is the material world. Then when we go into here, we have this sevenfold manifestation, and we're saying that the one whose light or pure energy, which was the photons. Now this comes out of a book called The Reflective Universe by Arthur Young. Powerful book. Arthur Young was the one who really developed the first functional helicopter. So he was not only a physicist and person of physical sciences, he also then he created an institute for higher consciousness up in the Bay Area, where they were trying to merge both physics and metaphysics together. No. Not in terms of our time. It would be European. So he talks about light as being pure energy, and the basis of the origin of the universe is from light, because we talk about light as being pure energy. And also, though, that there is intelligence in light, because the foundation of all creation came out of it, so the principles that govern it is intelligence in there, which brings on some other relationships. The point I'm trying to raise here is, from light we had photons that then were broken into positive and negative particles. So that's then the two, the duality. From the duality you get a trinity and you start creating atoms. So you have electron, proton, and neutron, which is three. Create a balance. So that's the atoms. And then from atoms, then you create molecules, which is based upon four, which is where the physical, tangible universe is made of a different combination of molecules. Everything physical is a different combination of molecules, which relates to the four. So then, there's another book called Alchemy by, it's about Swallowed Movie. But in that book, and if I remember, I'll try to bring it next week, because he talks about how the physical senses evolve out of the combination of the threes and the fours. Because the different physical things that were created had then certain characteristics that then the human or the living organism, in responding and reacting off that thing, evolved a mechanism to register it. Which means that there are higher forms of energy that are operating now. And our system is interacting with these things, and we are evolving the capacity to register it. Now the idea of it already exists. We just have not evolved the form around the idea for it to become actual. Which kind of goes back to the chapter in Stolen Legacy on the four attributes of bringing ideas into manifestation. I think it was on, I'm not sure what page it was on. We had talked about that too. About the idea, the substance, the cause, and the process, But anyway, again, what I'm doing also, because this is a continuation of a whole series coming out of Stolen Legacy, I constantly try to refer back to those points that we raised to show how all this stuff is interconnected, and also the importance of holding these ideas so that as you move forward, you can use that information to help you understand the further information. So, that's back to this. So then we're saying the physical world is the matrix of all sensual experience. But material or substance cannot be accounted for in two terms or in three. Two is an abstract or spiritual tension. Three is an abstract or spiritual relationship. 2 and 3 are insufficient to account for the idea of substance. And we can illustrate this by analogy. Lover and beloved and desire is not yet a household or even an affair. Sculptor, block, and inspiration is not yet a statue. Sodium, chlorine, and affinity is not yet salt. To account for matter in principle requires 4 terms: sculptor, block, inspiration, and statue. Lover, beloved, desire, and affair. Sodium, chlorine, affinity, and salt. Any questions on that? They have to have an affinity to interact. You can have chlorine and you can have sodium, but if there's no affinity to make them interact, you then can't create the 4th element of salt. There's a relationship between the two. It's a desire for those elements to want to come together, which is really an anatomical thing in terms of, polarities and all that, in terms of electron shells and, blah, blah, blah. But what he's just trying to show you on different levels how the same principle operates on atomic level, because then these various elements come together to create another element. Right? We got it? Thus, matter is a principle over and above polarity and relationship. So polarity is 2, relationship is 3. It includes of necessity both 2 and 3, yet is sometimes beyond the sum of its constituents, as every sculptor and lover knows full well. What are they talking about there? That 4 includes of necessity both 2 and 3, yet is something beyond the sum of its constituents, as every sculptor and lover knows full well. So it goes back to sculptor, block, inspiration, and statue.